to not blame others when you do have those setbacks and failures, to own it. Because if you don't own it, people who blame other people give up their power. If you blame someone else for your outcome, for your negative outcome, you are saying that person has power over you. F that. Yeah, no one has power over me.
I've never looked at it that way.
You cannot change a thing that happened yesterday, but you can influence what happens today and tomorrow. And I think one of the things that people do that blocks them from success, one of the most common things, is those failures that they should have redeemed themselves from. Instead of seeking redemption, it causes self-doubt, it causes bad decision-making processes. So learning, moving forward, and that's in life in general, that's in your personal life, that's in everything. We live in linear time.
Yeah.
You cannot change yesterday. When you are at that point where you think failure is imminent, you are stressed out. It is hard. The best things in my life that have happened right after I wanted to give up and didn't.
Yo, what's up, everybody? This is the End-to-End Podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Yun Win, affectionately called the Ninja or Prolific Ninja by my family and friends, and because my listeners are my fans, I want you to call me Prolific Ninja too. This is the End-to-End Podcast, the Alpha to the Omega, the beginning to the end, talking about life, motivation, drive, success, self-improvement, and offering you morsels in this all-you-can-eat buffet called life. Back in the studio, just back from California, feeling fantastic. I don't know why, something in the air, whatever, but it is a phenomenal time. We're getting a lot of motivation and drive and response on our PFAS campaign, which I'm going to talk to you about. But if you're new to the show, or if you've been listening for a while, you know that I start my show as I start my day. So when I wake up, open my eyes, I always give thanks to God, the universe, for another day to hopefully be inspirational and to do great things. And with that, I want to thank you all for listening. My fans, the fan base continues to grow. I think we're over 20-something thousand on Facebook. We just surpassed 6,000 plus on Instagram, YouTube. Everything is just growing phenomenally well. And so I want to thank you all for liking, commenting, following, sharing the show. You know, I do this on my own dime, on my own time. So got no sponsors, spend my money, a lot of money. Got a whole team here making this content for you. So the only way we grow the show is if you all like, comment, follow, and specifically share. And we do this on what I say is a value exchange. So if you like the show, you found something important, got 1% better, found some content that you think somebody you know would appreciate from this show or any of my past episodes, please do share the show. I like to say, if your knowledge swell, share the show. That is how we grow. Although I do this on my own dime, on my own time, you can support the projects that I do work on. CureConnector.com. My crypto token, Legacy X token. But more importantly, we are running a very, very passionate project in my law firm, and it's related to helping as many people affected by cancer as possible try to recover based on a chemical in the water that is called PFAS, P-F-A-S. So if you know anybody that's been affected by cancer, please direct them to PFAS Lawyer on X, or go to pfasinjuryattorney.com. Look at that information, fill out the form, and we'll get back to them. We do this at no cost to those affected by cancer to try to recover them some money for their injuries. So if you want to support the show, support that campaign, PFAS Injury Lawyer and pfasinjuryattorney.com. We have a variety of shows with the End-to-End Podcast. Mostly it's me giving a monologue, 10, 15, 20 minutes about some topic of success. We also have Prolific POV and Prolific Q&A, where I have my co-host, my producer, Reeb, come on, and we talk about current events or Q&A questions that you all ask, and I give my perspective. And most importantly, we have episodes where we bring on a guest, and that one is today, where we have a very, very special guest to the show. This guy, I would describe him, I've known him since 2000, just right at the start of the pandemic, if you actually believed in the pandemic. But this gentleman I met about 4 to 5 years ago. We hit it off. Very highly intellectual guy, but more important, he actually does the work with it. He's a serial entrepreneur, atypical success path, but very successful, very knowledgeable. My guy, hailing from Fort Lauderdale, John Ray, is here as a special guest to the show with the Ray Group and Mass Tort Success. I've been working with him for the last 5 years, have had a fantastic experience, him being a strategist for my law firm, but he goes beyond that. And so I'm having him here today to talk about his life story because it's an atypical pathway. And the lessons here to be learned on how to be successful, basically being yourself and doing what you think is right for yourself. So John, welcome to the show, buddy. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
Let's jump right into this, man. Right now we're working together because you are a master legal strategist on what are called mass tort campaigns, which we'll get into. But let's rewind a little bit earlier in your life. Talk about your past, talk about how you grew up, your history, and then sort of what led you to your first business endeavor in the medical industry.
I'd say that I was born extremely poor in rural mountains of Georgia. Would not have expected to get an opportunity to go to college, wouldn't have expected to get a lot of opportunities. But anyone who has been successful, whether they were born wealthy and privileged or born disadvantaged, you learn is that you make your own opportunities. That people who are born privileged, born with a predetermined success story often don't succeed. Sometimes maybe they haven't had enough challenges in life growing up to know and learn the elements of being successful at anything in their personal life as well as their professional life. I did get to go to college, sort of a fluke. Went to business school, and from there, I now need to do something. I realized early on I was a fireman, drove hazardous materials and so forth when I was in college. But I realized that I was essentially unemployable because I'm going to have my own direction. I'm going to have my own thoughts, and I want to pursue my own goals. And that it's not necessarily. I'm not denigrating myself to say I'm unemployable. It's that I wanted to make my own path, and the only way to do that is being in business for yourself. And in pursuing that, you need a business to be in, and the first business I went into was just because I was exposed to it, delivering hazardous materials to hospitals in the medical industry, and picked a segment of it to start a business in.
Okay, hold on right there, because as I already mentioned, very, very highly intellectual guy, but he does the work. But already a lot of pearls that you're dropping for the audience, right? You mentioned you came dirt poor. Like describe that dirt poor.
No indoor plumbing, that kind of thing. That rural mountains. Anybody who has been around West Virginia, Eastern Kentucky, Smoky Mountains of Georgia, a lot of just what people would call stark poverty. I didn't know it then, though. I didn't know we were poor growing up. I didn't know there were, because we were so remote, I didn't know that there were people who lived such different lives, had easy lives. And I think that probably helped mold me, my expectations.
Did it toughen up your psychology? Like what, a lot of people, let's say, for example, my personal view is if you want to be successful in business, you got to be able to risk it all. So,
very much so.
So knowing that you came from basically nothing, did that suggest to your psyche that I don't give a damn, I come from here?
The having nothing to lose thing. And this is something that stymies entrepreneurs at low levels of success. They start with nothing to lose. They're willing to risk everything. They start becoming successful. Now they have something to lose, and they stop taking calculated risk. They become, they forget what got them where they are. That you still have to take risks. Be smarter with your risk, but you can't stop taking them. You can't allow having something to lose stop you from being and doing the things and be who you are that got you to where you are to begin with.
Yeah.
And that is one of the most common things entrepreneurs do that stagnate them at a low level of success.
Yeah. So you hit on a very key point there, which is not like moving away from what got you there in the first place. And I'm sorry I sold you a little short. John is a legal strategist now to billionaire attorneys, And so he's seen all levels of success in different realms, but in the legal world, he's working with some of the top of the tops. Do you see that with your clients often?
Oh,
where,
yes.
Where they
Oh, yes.
they fear losing what they
Yes.
built, so they don't really
Yes.
expand beyond. Like,
Yeah.
do you have any examples or like sort of talk about that?
I will, yeah. Well, first I'll say fear is the biggest enemy of success. And it doesn't mean being reckless, but fear is a caveman emotion that serves no purpose in our modern world. We do not have dinosaurs and saber-tooths chasing us anymore. You know not to put your hand in a fire by the time you're 3 years old. The fear is the number one limiter of all endeavors, personal and professional. So yes, I see it all the time that people that I may have worked with when they were early on had that nothing to lose, go for broke, didn't really know how to do anything, especially in the practice of law. Because when a lawyer graduates law school, he doesn't know how to practice law, so he has to pick a practice area. And often the ones I work with picked personal injury, and they went for broke. Yeah, and then when they come and look at other areas that are lateral to that for horizontal expansion, like mass torts, oh, there's risk. I don't know how to do that. Well, you didn't know how to do personal injury law when you started either. You learned.
Yeah.
So they're not the person they were, and so they end up, they want to move on, right? Everybody wants to be that billionaire lawyer, or that billionaire whatever industry you're in, but the number one limiting factor is you've had enough success to now see that golden star out there. You went for the bronze star when you had nothing to lose. If you want to go for the gold, you have to maintain the same attitude, the same thought process as when you had nothing to lose, because that's what got you where you are. You just be wiser about it. Now you know more, take more calculated risk, have stop losses, make adjustments. The path to success is never a straight ascent. It is a process of failures and redemptions, and learning from your mistakes.
I love that, failure and redemptions.
It is, and those redemptions is what makes you strong enough to go on. Is you failed, you felt like a failure, and believe me, success has a million fathers. Failure is the loneliest place in the world. Nobody takes partial credit for your failures. So it is a lonely place, and the only way you get out of it is through the redemption of success after failure.
That's crazy. That's good. That's gold, man. I love that. We're already right into it. Usually we don't get into that part, 30, 40 minutes in the podcast, but you're out the gate on fire. That's great. We're going to get back to that. So I want to go back to your past. So dirt poor, no sanitation, basically, hand to mouth. What's that expression? Hand to mouth, just eating hand to mouth.
Well, actually my family, it wasn't that bad. We were poor, but we had food. But that had nothing extra. And you know what? Knew that you come to understand what is a need and what isn't when you have lived like that. Mm-hmm. And maintaining the line between needs and wants, one of the biggest mistakes I see people make when they want to be entrepreneurs is they chase money. If you chase money, it will run from you. 100%. Put yourself in front of it and it will come to you.
100%. God, man, you preach like kindred spirits here, because that's the very philosophy. Money is always circulating. You just got to stand in front of it to catch it.
Chase it and it'll run from you.
The money is the result of the process of doing good work.
Right, doing good work.
Yes.
Seeing opportunity, seeing a path that maybe no one else has ever taken before, because doing something other people have done may or may not lead to success, and you'll probably never be more successful than Elon Musk in being Elon Musk, right?
Right.
But he is someone who saw the audacious, and everyone in the world would say, you can't do that, and did it. It is seeing opportunities that others don't see, and there's no clear, well, they did it that way, it can be done. You have to do the things that can't be done. There's no proof it can be done.
And do it.
And
try, at least try.
And fail along the way.
Yes.
Redeem yourself and keep going.
So then as you're growing up, when did you understand or realize that you were different?
3.
Really? What was that? Was there a spark, or it's kind of like what do you recall about that? Sometimes
from resistance to the world, from the world of me being the way I was, and at times just recognize that other people don't think like I think, and it causes me problems sometimes, but I'm not going to change. Also, by the time I was 6, I realized I wasn't going to change.
Interesting.
Punishment wouldn't make me change. I wasn't going to conform. my desire, my drive to be exactly who I am was so strong that I was just going to have to deal with the negatives and well as the positives.
Yeah. So I'm reading the Robert Greene book, Mastery. And one of the core principles early in the book, I'm just getting into the book, is that those who've mastered life through their vocation, whatever, understood themselves and their vocation early. Vocation not in terms of job, but vocation is who they stood for, who they were. So you're understanding this at 6-ish, that you're not going to change regardless of external pressures or opinions or thoughts. And you say that hurts you sometimes. Like in what ways?
Okay, the world wants you to conform. You start school. School is a process of programming, and I'm not using that. And even brainwashing. That's not necessarily. I'm not saying brainwashing has its uses. We're brainwashed constantly, and often for good things. So it's wanting to make you conform. To a process, and if you don't conform, there's going to be punishment. Johnny's got to stand in the corner. Johnny's got to go to the principal's office and get whacked on the butt. Many times I did, and it did not change me. I was fine with being the way that I was, and it was. The benefits were I succeeded at things I wanted to do when I was that age, smaller things, not, it wasn't that I didn't want to change. I knew I was incapable of it.
Got it. It just wasn't, you're not programmed to conform.
No, I'm not designed that way.
So it brings the question then, are people of your ilk, entrepreneurs, have the grit, the steadfastness, all that, born, taught, or a blend of both?
It can be all of the above. The ones that are born have no choice but to be entrepreneurs. Some people can choose to be and learn new mindsets, but if you absolutely are wired not to be, nothing can make you, and you need to accept that. Nothing is going to make you an entrepreneur. Most people think they want to be entrepreneurs. They want to be that person. But if you are not remotely wired for it, if you can't learn the skills, if you can't change your mindsets, then just work for someone else. You'll have a much more peaceful life. You're never going to be that thing you thought you were wanted to be, but chances are you were never going to be it, and you might not like it.
Yeah. Well, it's riddled with failures and people who dropped out, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so then you become unemployable, which that's me. I'm unemployable. I like to tell my audience, coming out of law school, obviously with advanced degrees, MD, all that, plenty of opportunities to work at these, wingtip law firms, making, a good 6 figures right out the gate, but couldn't do it because I knew at that point I was unemployable. Just not from a standpoint of not being able to work for somebody else, because obviously I work for my clients, but not being able to work for somebody else knowing that I could do this for myself, right? Not being able to work for others knowing that I can do it maybe better, likely better. So when you say unemployable, coming to that realization in school, after school, saying, damn, I just got to go do it. Like what was that spark, or was there a moment where you're like, fuck it, I just got to go on my own?
Well, let me digress and redefine unemployable. That does not mean I cannot be in service to others. In fact, that is the number one element of success. Find a way to be needed.
That's
and be
what
in
an entrepreneur
service.
is, right? You're serving others.
Right. Find needs people may not even know they have.
Yeah.
And be in service to others. No, it's that the desire to do that, to find needs, to not just walk a path someone else has walked. I just don't want the paved road. Doesn't interest me.
Yeah.
I want challenges. I'm wired that way, and so that's why I'm unemployable, because I can't go to work where everything has already been determined how it's done. Going to work for somebody else, because quite often things become done a certain way, and I could tell any number of stories about that, but done a certain way in a instant, in a to solve an instant problem. A business will decide we're going to do it this way. And they never stop. They never revisit it and say, well, was that the best way to do it? It becomes their protocol, and it may not be the most effective or productive protocol. I can't deal with that.
Yeah, it's just done that way because it's always been done that way.
Right. That is a statement of ignorance.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not always seeking a more efficient way or more profitable way.
Kaizen. You're familiar with Kaizen?
Yeah. Constant improvement every day, right? That's the Japanese philosophy amongst the samurai. So let's get into your first business. So you are in the waste transportation, hazardous waste transportation.
No, actual stuff that goes boom.
Oh, okay. Elaborate.
Okay. You have to have I was a fireman. I became an apparatus engineer. I mean, you drive the truck, you run a fire scene. And I had a hazmat certification with a commercial driver's license with a hazmat certification. Driving things that go boom pays well. And so...
How did you land into that?
The fire department or the...
Oh, it's part of the fire department.
That's okay. I had the licenses required to get a job
got it.
Driving hazardous materials publicly. And my first job was driving hazardous materials. Hospitals use a lot of things that go boom. That my route was delivering in Atlanta, things like hydrogen, things that
gases
to hospitals, and 80% of them, if my truck had been hit by another truck, not a car, I would have been incinerated.
Wow.
That's why it pays well.
Yeah. So you're driving around puckered up, or you like?
No. Actually, the thought, realizing that I would be red dust.
Yeah.
I wouldn't feel it. It keeps you from worrying about it. Sometimes when another truck would slam on its brakes in front of you, chances are if you hit it from the back to back, you're not going to blow up. But it's somebody hitting you from the side. Something big enough and it's not that big of a risk. I mean, just because you get hit doesn't mean you're going to blow up. But with the things that I was carrying, if I did, I'm just going to be red dust. I'm never going to know it. So there's no reason to worry about it. That's just it. Worrying about things, fear and worry are weakening things. Worry has never solved a damn thing.
No, it hasn't. It's often just an
anticipating
imaginary,
the worst leads you to the worst. It opens the door to it. It brings it into your reality. Worry and fear weaken you. They do not strengthen you. They do not prepare you. People think if I don't worry about it, it will happen. No, if you focus on it and worry about that negative, it's more likely to happen. You're manifesting it.
Yes.
So,
okay. No, we talk about that a lot in this podcast about being metaphysical. Sort of, are you vibrating into a predetermined outcome because you're focusing your attention there? Right. So it's like on the golf course, you have water, and you're so worried about the water that you're going to hit it into the water.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. Right. So, man, this is gold. Okay, so you're transporting hazardous waste, but that leads you into your first business entrepreneurial endeavor. Talk about that pathway.
Okay. Well, you deliver to the dock. You don't go through the front doors. Patient, I'm aware. Well, other businesses are there too, right? You talk to people, so I'm talking to different people there. Yeah. What do you guys do? And the first, I ran into a few people that were in what was then called the home care business, provide home oxygen, home medical equipment, et cetera. So I started looking into it, and it was then being in healthcare was actually desirable from a profit standpoint, and also the aspect of the ultimately helping people. And so that was the first medical business I went into, and then I laterally expanded into other businesses in healthcare, natural expansion, and I sold the majority of them in 1999 when it was no fun to be in healthcare anymore.
Yeah, that's when I got out of medicine. Actually,
I was 35 then. I'm 60 now, so it was I just continued to build out that business as well as lateral businesses that this is in line with it. My existing resources that I'm using that I've built, my infrastructure, can jump me into another lateral business without sacrificing my existing business and its forward pathway. You never eat your milk cow in business. In other words, you have a business that is producing, for you, that is your cash cow, your cash flow. It is successful. And you want to move into a lateral business, do not sacrifice your successful business to do it. You have to find a way for them to complement each other.
Yeah. So complementary, either an infrastructure or target marketing. Contacts, network. So I'm going to rewind a little bit through what you just shared. So you're in your own. So a lot of questions I get are, man, I want to start my own business, but I don't know where to go. or know what to do to start this new business. You stated you're in the transportation business. You're doing your hourly work, whatever high paying hourly work as a transport guy, but then you're at the docks networking with other business
Other
owners.
not CEOs,
Okay.
no. Other people who deliver things to a dock at a hospital.
Other
Blue collar
drivers,
workers.
yeah. So the value in just opening your mouth and talking to other people.
You want to know something about a business? Skip the executive offices. Go to the plant. Go to the floor. Talk to the janitor.
Yeah.
You want to. Warren Buffett does that when he goes and evaluates a business. He doesn't care what the CEO, CFO has to say. He goes and talks to the rank and file.
Yeah.
He will learn more from
Gold,
those businesses.
gold, y'all. Listen to this.
How those businesses operate. Because quite often the people at the top, there's clouds between them and the people at the bottom, and the people at the bottom know what's going on. The people at the top think they know what's going on.
Right. And the people at the top are gonna
they're going to sugarcoat it. They have a motive to make themselves look better. Right,
Yes,
right.
yeah.
Go talk. I'm serious. Talk even to the janitor. Because hey, they empty the garbage. They know a lot. The people who take out the garbage know a lot. And the people who are actually doing the work will know more about what's going on in a business than the people at the top. And so, if you want to learn a business, so I was talking to other blue collar workers on the dock about what the company they worked for did.
So you I know you have no fear of anything. Was there ever a fear of talking to strangers? And I ask that because a lot of the current generation, let's say Gen Z and later, they've been behind the phone their whole lives basically, and they have what I would say developed in-person communication difficulties. So if someone were having a challenge learning how to just randomly talk to somebody, what would your advice to them be?
Just do it, because that other person is living in their own world and may be lonely, may have their own reticence. If they want to blow you off, so what?
Yeah.
It's like, why does some guys get to dance with the prettiest girls and other guys don't?
Usually the ugliest guys.
Because they asked.
Yeah.
Because they took the chance. It's the same thing. You have to get over the fear of rejection. What does rejection in that scenario cost you? Nothing. I try to talk to someone I don't know. They don't want to talk to me. So what? Yeah, move on. That's more their problem than my problem, because I'm worth talking to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I'm sure you have moments where you don't want to talk to people either that come approach you.
Yeah, and I try to talk to people. I try never to just blow people off, but I'm sure I do.
Yeah, it just happens in your daily flow. So for you out there, striking up conversations, I think, is a critical component on a pathway to whatever success journey you're on, because success requires people, right? You rarely can do it on your own. And so in order to do that, you must become a communicator. You must learn how to communicate. You must learn how to have conversation, either to close the deal, find new opportunities, find new networks, conversation, communication.
Running a successful business and building it, when you're an entrepreneur, you have that desire to succeed yourself. And I said, failure is a bastard, success has a million fathers. Yeah. Is you have to learn to find the right people, empower them, and make them feel like they're part of your success. Maybe even more than they are, because it's human nature to want to take all the gold medals yourself and put them around your neck. No, you did it. You don't need to wear them, hang them around your people's necks.
Yes. Yeah. So the leader, what I've understood as a leader of my law firm and other businesses, is that the credit always goes to them, actually.
And the blame goes to you.
And the blame goes to you.
That's called a leader.
That's a leader. Yeah. And so you must be willing to have that humility and drop your ego to say, hey, I know it's my company, but they're the ones that make it successful.
Right. You can't do it alone.
You can't do it alone.
And ego is beneficial in some ways, but when people who are who want to always appear to be this great thing, to be more than human, they're easy, blow their own horn all the time, never give anyone else credit for anything. That's not a strong person. That's not a leader. That's a weak person. That's coming from weakness. Yeah. And it's not a false humility, because it does require other people, possibly giving them more credit than they're due to others, because that's going to strengthen them, and they're going to do for you and the team's goals better things, and they're going to let them have ideas. One of the things that becoming so married to your own ideas that you don't listen to anyone else, because quite often someone can be talking about something. They may not be the brightest person in the world, but even an idiot has a gold nugget every once in a while in their thoughts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this medical company you built, just to give the audience, or if you can speak about it, what was the size of that company before you sold it, or sold a majority share?
It was in about 20 states. It was an 8-figure company, and it was, and I sold it to a publicly traded company. And I also owned medical practices by that time. They did not buy the medical practices. I sold them off individually.
Wow, that's good. That's fantastic. And you're talking about in the 90s to early 2000s.
Beginning of 99.
Yeah, which is a significant transaction. You could have been done, but yet you felt the need to go on.
It's not money that drives. If money, don't chase money. If money drives you.
Don't chase money, y'all.
If money drives you, you probably will not be successful. If that is your, if that's what you're looking at out there, this big pile of money, you will probably never see it.
Yeah.
It is being the person who is motivated by the work, motivated by what you're doing, motivated by just wanting to accomplish things. It's called being driven.
Yeah.
And a driven person, I was 35 then, a driven person is not going to just stop. They're just going to move on to something else, a different destination.
Yeah. So again, driven, born with it, learned, somewhere in between. What do you think?
It could be either, because it could be, people think, successful people, they must be smart. They had a good idea. Good ideas are a dime a dozen. People, he had this $1 billion idea. There's no, and in a way, there's no such thing as $1 million idea. There's $1 million people, or $1 billion people in modern times.
Oh, I love that, man. I love that. There's no such thing as $1 million idea. There's only $1 million people. Mm-hmm. When you say $1 million people, the qualities required to go out and make $1 million bucks.
Right. The best ideas in the world usually never are pursued because the wrong person had them. It is. The idea sometimes doesn't have to be that great. It is. But it has to be in the right person's hands.
Man, John, dropping gold nuggets, bro. You on fire. So sell off the business. You're like, okay, I'm not done. I want to go do something else.
I took a year off.
Took a year off.
Yeah,
and deservedly so.
And almost died from it. I mean, I literally became depressed.
Huh? Because you just weren't doing it.
Poor boy now has a 13,000 square foot house on 40 acres, North Atlanta. Just dream life. Most people look from the outside. Yeah. I became depressed.
Wow. Talk about that. Dig a little deeper on that.
No purpose. I mean, I worked on my little mini farm thing, got on a tractor every day, reminiscent of my growing up and a country boy kind of thing. And it did not give me the challenges that I needed. It didn't give me the purpose that I needed, because what was I doing for anybody else? What was I doing to make the world a little better place? My goal is always to be a better version of myself today than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
Knowing most days I'm going to fail.
Yeah.
And how can I be a better person than I was yesterday when I'm not doing anything for anybody else? I'm not doing anything to advance, even change the world 1 micron.
Yeah.
I'm just planting trees and stuff. So
yeah. So purpose is found in the service of others.
Of course, yeah.
100%.
Right.
That's what humans. Yeah.
Serving yourself is a path to a hollow end.
Yeah. Man, I love that too. So how'd you get out of the depression?
Started doing stuff again.
Yeah, like what was the first?
First thing I did is I started a nutraceutical company. I had lined up an outsourced manufacturer in Australia called Pan Pharmaceuticals, and designed some different nutraceuticals myself. I had an office over my barn, big barn.
Yeah.
Lined it up, put the infrastructure together, and started doing it. And it was interesting because it started being a little successful, and Pan Pharmaceuticals was then rated by the Australian FDA. It was a setup. Ended up in bankruptcy, which resulted in me actually arguing a point before the Australian Supreme Court, though I'm not a lawyer, and succeeding in their bankruptcy.
Okay.
Because I had the cojones to do it, and the lawyers handling it didn't, and so ultimately, when all that shook out, I realized that wasn't the business I wanted to be in. It was still a good pathway, a learning pathway, and I actually made money, surprisingly. Not in the way I would have thought, but then before I had sold my healthcare companies, a friend of mine was a lawyer for Mag Mutual, a medical malpractice insurance company, and they asked me quite often when doctors are sued for med mal, and it's really not, they haven't committed med mal. They are reticent. They will not settle because it's like, and
How
so,
dare you?
how dare you say it, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so it was, first one was a doctor I knew really well, and the lawyer asked me, would you talk to him? There was a baby involved, right?
Yeah.
We've offered them $2 million. They will accept it. Your policies aren't going. Yeah, it wasn't your fault, but
Yeah.
your insurance is not going to go up. Nothing is going to happen to you if you go to court and they get a settlement, and they get a $10 million verdict. Well, you have a $2 million pilot. You're losing your house,
yeah.
and he still wouldn't do it. So I started doing that. I basically counseling doctors who were reticent to settle in those situations for that law firm, and that was where I started working with law firms. It was before I actually sold my companies.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm learning all these new things, man. So, I mean, so it seems that you have a core set of principles and values, and life is just leading you down success routes based on those core principles and values.
Right.
Would you agree? Yeah.
Yeah, and you used the word master to describe me. I'm one of the most. I never call myself a master. A successful person is always a student.
I love that, man. I love it. Well, to me, you're a master.
Well,
Because I'm a student to what you're showing.
and I'm a student to you sometimes too. I
Yeah.
learn from you. Is thinking of yourself as having arrived ends your journey.
So it's never ending.
It's never ending.
The journey never ends.
Until you take your last breath.
Yeah, love that.
And then it's just a new journey.
Love that. So as you all know, I forget which podcast episode, I talk about the tortoise and the hare, and there's a storyline around that it's not that the hare loses, it's the hare went away from his being, its core self, decided to take a nap rather than be itself. But the race actually never ends.
Right.
Entrepreneurship is not a sprint, nor it's a marathon. It's an ebb and flow, but there is no finish line.
Failure is a temporary condition, so is success.
Yeah. And you got to keep going. So you're counseling this law firm. I want to get to where you are now because that I think has the potential to be the most impactful in terms of helping others defining in that definition of success. So you go from there to now mass torts.
Not a direct line.
Not a direct line. Okay, so what was the indirect line? And then get into, because a lot of people in the audience does not know what a mass tort is.
A tort is a legal wrong. A mass tort is that legal wrong committed against a mass of people in the same way, basically.
Okay.
The same people doing it. It's like the cases against pharmaceutical companies and so forth, which are very much misunderstood by the public. But and environmental cases that affect many, many people. The next step, how I ended up working with mass tort lawyers. I was at a closing. It had nothing to do with what I was doing before. I just worked, with lawyers. I was at a closing for a commercial building. I don't remember if I was buying it or selling it, but and there were a whole bunch of lawyers. It was taking forever, right? So we all start talking. And one of them was a mass tort lawyer. And we said, what business were you in? And I told him, he said, and he was involved in pharmaceutical medical device cases. And he said, do you know anything about FDA regulations? Like, since I'd lived it for all those years. And I said, yeah, I know a little bit about that, which in the South means you have a PhD. So that was the first thing. He wanted me to explain some things about how the FDA, say, works is not accurate because it doesn't work that well, but what actually happens, how it functions. So I did that, and it just ballooned. And shortly, a few years into it, I realized, oh my God, lawyers are horrible business people, and
kind of like doctors.
So I started the course that you took, which is a business course primarily on mass tort running a mass tort law firm, but it's beneficial to running any contingency fee law firm.
Yeah.
So, teaching basic business principles like cash conversion cycles, really business 101, as well as mindset and attitude. And it was very successful. Thousands of lawyers have taken it over the years. It's a 4-day intense course. Getting lawyers away from their practice for 4 days, so that then, because of my regulatory background and my ability to learn didactically, I started identifying the products that there needed to be medical devices that needed to be addressed through litigation, because they weren't adequately warned of the risk, making doctors using them on patients that should have been screened out, to help correct that and get reimbursement for the people who have been harmed by that tort. And then onto environmental cases. They're called toxic torts. They kind of fall under the same umbrella, which ultimately led to me working on PFAS all these years later, because it's the most significant threat to human life there's been. I would say more so than even our world wars.
Wow. That big.
Yeah.
That's a statement.
We're talking about altering the human genome.
That's crazy.
It is. I don't want to scare people,
Yeah.
but this is a big deal. We need to stop this.
Yes.
That better living through chemistry, that concept that came up in the 1950s and sort of ran buck wild. Yeah, we need to put a chain on it and make sure that we're not dumping things into our water that could literally cause human extinction.
That's crazy.
That's not.
That's not good.
The planet does not give a dang whether we're here or not.
Yeah.
It'll keep
going.
on spinning.
Yeah.
We need to, it's not about save the planet. What about save the human?
Yeah. I like
that's
that.
what it's about.
So we're going to get into that PFAS because it's it's up there with, human catastrophe potential. Leading into that, because that's new, getting into mass torts, again, these are injuries against a massive amount of people caused by either, for example, a pharmaceutical drug or a medical device or some type of product that's been out there. It's environmental contaminant. Yes, like dumping. So different than a class action, but in the same kind of family. Before we get into PFAS, when you're working with these attorneys, what type of flaws and then what elements of success can you see in people, attorneys specifically, that can say, I know this guy's it's gonna work. I don't think it's gonna work, even though they're here. What are the characteristics of the traits that you see, not just in attorneys, but just success generally, when you look at people or evaluate people?
Continuing to be willing to take risk after you have something to lose. Already you're successful. It's a different, what got you there. The willingness to learn something new when you've got something else down now. You've got that personal injury practice. You know how to do that. You've got your checkbox way to do that. Now moving into something that you're going to have to create a checkbox for. It's basically having cojones. And the willingness to suffer some failure along the way, make adjustments, and to not blame others when you do have those setbacks and failures, to own it. Because if you don't own it, people who blame other people give up their power. If you blame someone else for your outcome, for your negative outcome, you are saying that person has power over you. F that. No one has power over me.
I've never looked at it that way. Blame is giving someone else power versus blame should be, I always say you must learn how to own it in order to fix it and improve. But that's a new way of looking at it in terms of, man, that's gold.
It's conceding power to someone else. If they had the power to make you fail, no. No one has the power to make you fail.
I love that. So you're working with all these lawyers. What is one of the biggest mass torts you've worked on or advised or strategically?
Oh my God. I've been doing it so long.
Just to let people, the audience know.
The tobacco litigation, $500 billion, BP oil, $250 billion, $250 billion.
So you were consultants to lawyers on all these cases.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was working on the BP litigation before the oil made it to the shore. The opioid litigation, which most of the truth about that never came out. I won't get into that. I did a massive amount of research, uncovered what really happened, and it's never going to come out because there were powerful people involved. It's the way the world works. I used to get upset about those things. things. Now I don't. It's like I do my part, and I realize the world works the way it works, and it does no good for me to get upset about things that I can't do anything about. Knowing what you can change and what you can't is important.
Okay. Now let's move into. So you've you've dealt with trillions of dollars.
Oh yeah,
worth of litigations across your span of time in mass torts, and so now we're talking about PFAS. Okay. Describe to the audience what PFAS is and what the potential, the magnitude of what this looks like.
Sure. The versions or the products that most people are familiar with are Teflon. These substances, people think that Dow and DuPont invented them. They didn't. They were invented during the Manhattan Project, making the bomb. The Dow and DuPont were, Dow, DuPont, 3M, I think 3M as well worked on that. They then went on to license some, develop some additional. What they are is indestructible chemicals. They are useful as heck. I mean, they're like 18,000 different versions now. They can be water repellent or make something absorb water, depending on what. It starts out with fluorine and a carbon molecule, at least one of each, bonded through a process. Those don't normally chemically bond, through a process called teleratomization. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Forcing them to bond. Once that bond is created, there's nothing in nature that will break it. Okay, why is that a problem? Well, nature is based on everything that exists naturally. Something else exists in nature that will break that thing down. The world is like its own recycling center.
Yeah.
Right. The human body is the same way. The problem we now have is these chemicals have been used so ubiquitously in industry. I mean, millions and millions of tons every year. And then they now, unlike in the 1970s when chemicals were just dumped directly into water, factories that use chemicals before they redump into water, because they're always mixed with water, have to treat the water. The problem is the treatment systems do not remove the PFAS. So these PFAS chemicals, these indestructible chemicals, are going into rivers and streams where we get our drinking water from, into the groundwater too. And then again, our city, county, whatever, takes water from that natural water source that now has these in them, and they treats it. But and it treats that water before it delivers to your house. But those treatments don't remove these indestructible things either. They come into your house, you bathe in them, you drink them, you breathe them when you're in the shower with steam. It doesn't matter whether you drink bottled water or not, they get into your body. And 98% of the population, a study by the CDC going on since 2011, has enough of these in their body, the required level, to cause cancer. That doesn't mean we're all going to get cancer, but a doubling of the risk of a variety of types of cancers. Risk. And so you're 98% of us. And so that is catastrophic. It affects. They get in fish. We're in the river. So even if they stop dumping the biota, the plants, the fish, the soil in the river, they're going to be there for decades, right? There's really no way to clean the Mississippi River from top to bottom, right?
Right.
So where we are now is needing to reverse the process, to stop using them, because attempts to find a way to cost effectively break them down in nature, much less the human body, has not succeeded. And that's what's being addressed here. The other thing is to make the 300,000 companies that have used them compensate people for the harm. Now, you might say that, well, someone like some big paper company, they didn't know. Doubtful, because evidence has shown 3M, DuPont, and concrete evidence that they did know as early as 1957. So when you are a company endeavoring in a for-profit business, you have an obligation to know the harm you can cause. These multi-billion-dollar, $100 billion companies, they certainly had the ability to research these chemicals themselves before they used them and dumped them into the water, and they have an obligation to do so. So from a legal standpoint, they're charged with knowledge, whether we can prove they knew or not, because they had a duty and responsibility to know. And there's some 300,000 companies in the United States that need to put up over $1 trillion to compensate the people who've been harmed, as well as to clean up the problem in individual wells and rivers to the greatest extent that it can be right now, start reversing the process of this massive contamination that so far has been shown to affect over 70% of the country's water supply. Wow. And it's probably higher than that, so that we start reversing it. We can't there's no time machine. We can't go backwards, but we can fix forwards.
Yes. So the size and scope, and that's a lot to unpack. 99% of us have it in our bodies. CDC study from 20.
The NANES study, NHANES.
Yeah, the NANES study. Over 300,000 companies have been working with PFAS, PFAS, or if you want to look it up, look up the forever chemical. It's in everything we use, Band-Aids, I mean, everything we use. To-go cups, to-go containers, like
this table. The glue that put it together. The
laminate.
The laminate, the shine on the laminate. It is so ubiquitous. And that is one, some people might say, well, they're so useful. How are we, it's going to cost more to do this or that. Well, okay, pick your poison.
Yeah.
Certain things may cost a little more, or you can continue increasing your risk to get cancer and affecting your children's endocrine system and even possibly the genome of children being born. I'll go with, or maybe not having as many conveniences. You know what? The world, people live. I grew up without conveniences.
Yeah.
You don't have to have all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you say the cancers and developmental issues with children, I mean, so we're consulting, I'm doing my own research. It's, it disrupts your endocrine system. So it affects hormones. Obviously, with children in development, hormones it's driven by hormones, their development. So when you're saying affecting the genome and affecting humanity, at least in the United States, what is the size and scope? I mean, it almost is incomprehensible.
It is almost incomprehensible. That's when you should talk about someone, any group of people being able to do over $1 trillion worth of damage. It is. It's never been anything like this. I mean,
not even asbestos.
Not asbestos. No, this is like asbestos times 20. Very similar to asbestos from a litigation standpoint, but it's like asbestos times 20. Or at least 20.
Yeah. If you don't know about asbestos, it's a crystal that's been used in construction. When you inhale it, it causes lung cancer. Has affected thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I think, from my research, $400 to $500 billion has been paid out on asbestos claims, and you're saying this could be?
Yes, because asbestos wasn't in the water supply. People who were exposed to asbestos was either worked somewhere where it was being used, or there were far fewer exposure rates. It wasn't in the water supply, and it wasn't floating around in the air everywhere. It might be in the air right around the plant or so forth. So that's why it's so much larger. I mean, and so much more of this was used. Asbestos was used ubiquitously. Again, an extremely useful, naturally occurring substance. That was naturally occurring. But this has been so much more ubiquitously used and in such greater volumes. It's no more or less insidious. It's just that it's more been used more.
Yeah, and it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
So all these cancers: thyroid, liver, kidney, pancreas, your reproductive organs, lymphoma, leukemias, thyroid disease, digestive diseases, ulcerative colitis, all been linked with PFAS exposure.
Yeah, endocrine disrupting chemicals. This is not the only one. These are not the only ones. They've been well studied, and studies are a lot of money is being put into specifically studying PFAS. But scientific logic tells us, well, if every other endocrine disrupting chemical causes this series of things, PFAS is likely to cause all those too, and possibly additional ones.
Got it. So how long have you been working on this? I mean, you're like, that's why you're what I would label as an expert in this area.
12 years.
12 years. What got you into that? What sparked that initial?
The C8 litigation, Dark Waters, the movie Dark Waters was made about it. I followed that when it was in the early stages, and I realized how ubiquitous these chemicals were used. But from a litigation standpoint, the C8 litigation did not make national litigation ripe. That you can know something's going on, but for a case to be addressable by courts, there have to be other elements, and for it to be mechanically possible from a business standpoint to litigate for firms, other things have to come in place. And in 2019, the federal government finally started recognizing it. There was a congressional PFAS task force. Our government is finally doing its job on this.
Yeah.
Hoorah. Politics is finally on the side of the people, which is rare. The politicians are on our side this time.
Yeah.
Because
For their own selfish reason.
right,
though.
when 98% of voters are victims,
Yeah.
then
You wanna be on their
you wanna
side.
be on their side. Yeah, your corporate masters have to take a back seat on that. So that's why politics swung in our favor. A lot more has been uncovered that will have evidentiary value in litigating the cases, and it was finally ripe in time. And I've been following it. I was on the opioid litigation 15 years before it was ripe, and just I watch. I do some research, and then when there are other things I'm got in my hopper now that may not be litigated for 10 years from now, but need to be.
Yeah.
Because I view litigation, our government agencies generally fail us in major ways. I view litigation as regulation through litigation, that quite often when government agencies don't have the will, the ability, or maybe sometimes
Resources.
corrupt,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yep.
But regardless, they're not getting the job done.
Yeah.
Then the kick in the pants from making people who are doing wrong have to pay out a lot of money to the people they hurt is a form of regulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're a capitalist like I am
God, yes.
in so many ways, but in this, and people would confuse capitalism as make money at any cost.
Mm-hmm.
That's not it.
You do not need a college level ethics class to know if you step on somebody's toe, say you're sorry.
Yeah.
That yes, you could pursue your own goals, but there is a limit to the harm you will do to other people to do that. You know that when you're 6.
Yes.
So it does not require, but people lose sight of that. Greed is not in and of itself bad. It is what that greed leads you to do that can be good or bad.
Yeah, and compromise your moral and ethical compass.
Do things that a child would know is wrong.
Right, exactly. So the size, and in disclosure, I mentioned before, I am working with John from my law firm in this PFAS litigation. It's real early, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. This will be going on for 30, 40 years. I mean, it's just now ramping up. There have been like 21 billion, I think, in settlements so far. And what will ultimately be, I mean, the insurance industry is doing all kinds of actuarial work on this because they're going to have to cover some. To say it will be at least $1 trillion settlement in total settlements, whereas tobacco was $500 billion, is probably underestimating it. And you say, well, who could pay $1 trillion? Well, actually, there are 300,000 potential defendants, and some of them have $1 trillion market cap. So
the size of their company's over $1 trillion. Yeah. A trillion T. So that's 1,000 billions, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a lot of zeros.
That's a lot of zeros in harm that has been caused through this PFAS contamination.
And $100 bills, if you stack them in front of the White House, about 3 times the size of the White House.
Jeez. Now you know why I'm in this litigation with John, because, and going back to the earlier statement, it's not about the money. It's about, for me personally in my law firm, it is about helping as many families affected by cancer as possible.
Money is a success. Money is a measure of success.
It's a measure of success. And so by virtue of helping these people affected by cancer, the money will come if we do good work.
Right. But you're putting yourself in front of it.
Right, exactly.
And there's nothing wrong with being paid for doing good and helping people. Make as much money as the market will allow. That's capitalism. Make money for doing good and make as much as you can as the market will allow. Not make money for doing bad. Just watch Batman, for God's sake. It pretty much will teach you everything you need to know.
The duality of it. Man. Pure gold, and like so many gold nuggets in this podcast episode. I mean, we're talking about humble beginnings, not giving an F about what people think, understanding yourself at an early age that you had to carving out your own path, going through depression from success, which is a lot of people don't understand how that even happens. Getting out of that, now working on a campaign that, man, is almost could be potentially history making with this PFAS litigation. I mean, that's quite the journey for a guy who didn't think he was gonna, go the traditional route, so would speak. Some would say, go to college, get a job, do this right, and then you're gonna live this happy ever after life, right? Kind of wrap it up and last pearls, words of wisdom to anybody. I mean, this is probably one of the best episodes that I've had with a guest when talking about life experience and not just success, but what it is to do good and work through the values that you have in helping others. So kind of wrap this up in terms of advice.
If I had to say what is the key to continuing along a success, but you cannot change yesterday. You cannot change a thing that happened yesterday, but you can influence what happens today and tomorrow. And I think one of the things that people do that blocks them from success, one of the most common things, is those failures that they should have redeemed themselves from. Instead of seeking redemption, it causes self-doubt. It causes bad decision-making processes. So staying forward, moving forward, learning, moving forward, and that's in life in general. That's in your personal life. That's in everything. You cannot change. We live in linear time.
Yeah.
You cannot change yesterday.
Yeah. Which you hit on a very key point. I kind of envision myself, because when you want to run, you have to lean forward and move, or you fall on your face.
This is what I would say to is when you are at that point where you think failure is imminent, you are stressed out. It is hard. The best things in my life that have happened right after I wanted to give up and didn't.
Wow. You said that very passionately. Like, give an example. Like dig into that just a little bit. I mean, it's just like
when I thought that I was defeated, I was on the right path, but it just didn't happen so many times. When things were, when I'm having to ask myself, am I strong enough for this? Do I have what it takes? I feel beaten down. It's like MMA fighters. It's not the guy who has the most skill. It's the guy who has skill and can also take pain.
Yes.
That will be a champion.
Interesting.
Got to be willing to get your butt kicked.
And get to the verge of getting your butt kicked.
My favorite movie scene ever is the Cool Hand Luke fight scene, where he just keeps knocking him down and getting back up.
That's an
and
old
finally he
school
throws
movie.
him over his shoulder and he loves the dude, because he just wouldn't.
My favorite scene, I love that movie, but my favorite scene from that one is just eating the eggs. How many eggs?
Yeah. He was just 1%.
It's Cool Hand Luke. No, I mean, gold, man, nothing but gold nuggets. It's an honor to have you on the show. If people wanted to reach out, and I hope you do, John is a very approachable guy. I just know from personally, willing to always help out, always give some advice. How do people reach you?
My email is john@masstortssuccess.com.
John, JOHN at mass, MASS, torts, TORTS, success.com. Reach out to him. There is a wealth of knowledge. A guy who's made it to the top and is still understanding that there is no top.
There's no top.
You just keep going.
Think about it, there's only one way to go from top.
It's down.
Mm-hmm.
So but you got to keep going up because there is no top.
Right.
Success in all realms of life has helped. Gosh, I mean, how many? Just side note, with all the law firms you've helped and all of their clients, how many lives do you think you've impacted?
About 6 million.
6 million lives.
Yeah.
If that's not leaving a legacy.
I didn't do it alone.
I know you didn't do it alone, but you had a hand.
Yeah, I did a small part. Yeah.
In impacting over 6 million lives.
And right now, the thing that motivates me about the PFAS situation is that it's pretty much the entire planet that we're helping.
That's crazy.
The future. We're helping people that aren't even born yet.
That's crazy. If we can change things right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's so important, man. Like, if that's not a legacy, bro, from a small town guy from rural Georgia, not having a lot, to already now having established that you've helped 6 million lives get better. And through your body of work and helping others, eventually, potentially could help the planet. If that's not a legacy of success, man, I don't know.
Help humans on the planet.
Yeah, humans on the planet. I don't know what is, man.
Well, I'm going to be dead when I'm dead, so I'm not really worried about the after, but, I'll be on to something else and I probably won't care about any of this anymore. But while I'm here, try to do as much as you can because, you're going to be here anyway, so you may as well.
That's crazy, man. Please reach out to John Ray, john@masstortssuccess.com if you want to follow him. I'm in disclosure, I'm doing a whole body of work. You mentioned earlier going all in on this PFAS. Personally, because of the impact it could make in helping other people. And again, I think one of the core lessons is success is found in helping others as an entrepreneur, as a human being. So to the extent you all want to support that, if you know anybody with cancer, any families affected by cancer, whether living or having passed away, please reach out to the podcast, reach out to PFAS Lawyer on X, or go to pfasinjuryattorney.com. You will be helping me, working with John, to impacting potentially millions and millions, potentially billions of lives into the future. And if that's any way we can leave an impact on the world before I go, that would be the way I would be proud to go, having left that kind of impact on the world. So, John, thanks for being on the show,
Thank you,
brother.
man.
Thank you so much.
Right.
It's such an honor. A lot of pearls, a lot of wisdom. In wrapping up the show, I hope you found something valuable. As if you're new to the show, I end my show as I end my day. When my head hits the pillow before I close my eyes, I give thanks to God and the universe for another day to have hopefully inspired somebody to become better, to live to their fullest controllable potential. And with that, I want to thank you all for listening. Thank John for being on the show. I want you all to be great today, but be even more grateful. Looking forward to bringing you another episode of the End to End Podcast very, very soon. And if your knowledge swole, please do share the show. That is how we grow. Talk to you soon on the next episode.